It was Grace's first day of school. New school, new place. Everything was new, unfamiliar, and scary. Grace stood in her living room and looked at the front door. Her backpack was strapped tightly to her. All that was left to do now was step out and begin the walk to school. But she was nervous. She held back tears. Grace had questions hidden inside her that she felt might come flying out like air from a deflating balloon. She stared at the door. She could only imagine the journey that lay beyond it. Grace imagined a dense forest, so dense you could barely see through it, with creatures of all kinds and trees so high that they reached into space. Could she enter into that forest? Could she make it through? She would need someone to help, someone to be there. Grace imagined mountains so high that they scraped the clouds. The mountains were jagged and seemed impossible to climb. Falling rocks fell from them and crashed to the ground. Could Grace climb such a mountain? Would she even dare to try? She would need someone to help, someone to be there. Grace imagined a dark so dark that she couldn't even see her hand in front of her face. It was a dark that seemed to go on forever in every direction. Could she navigate through the dark? Grace would need someone to help, someone to be there. Grace stared at the door. Then she looked back at her mother. Grace's mother smiled and motioned her daughter over to a chair. As Grace sat, her mother took a seat across from her and asked in a soft voice,
"Have I ever told you why we named you Grace?"
Grace shook her head slowly from side to side.
Let me tell you a story. A long time ago, I stood at that same door. After talking with my mother, your grandma, I opened the door and started walking. I had no idea where to go, and the forest before me looked dense enough to swallow me up. I wondered where to even begin. When I reached the edge of the forest, I looked back. I wondered if I could finally catch a glimpse of whatever that darting motion was. But I could see only trees. But then the fox emerged from the woods in that same spot I had. It stood for a moment, looking at me. Of course, the fox couldn't speak, but he seemed to say to me,
"Well done, my child. Remember, whatever you face and wherever you go, I will be there. In fact, I am there already. Don't fear. I am going ahead."
The fox darted back into the forest down the exact same pathway that I had come. I realized then that the fox had been the one setting the path before me. It must have been working long before I had ever even begun to walk. It gave me comfort to know that a way had been prepared for me long before I even knew to follow it. So it will be with you, my child, my love. Grace, you will feel lost, but you will come to find that the way has been prepared for you all along. The pathway had been cleared for you to follow. Before you ever even take a step, Grace goes ahead.
Grace looked down at her shoes and then back into her mom's face with a crinkled brow. She asked,
"But what if I get hurt? What if I fall down? What if I'm not strong enough?"
Her mother reached out and took Grace's hand and continued her story.
After I made it through the forest, I was full of confidence, but that confidence didn't last. I turned, and there was the biggest and most jagged-looking mountain I'd ever seen or even imagined in my dreams. It looked like it scraped the clouds. There was no way around. I would have to climb. closed my eyes and I fell. At that very moment, something caught me and cradled me like I was a baby again. I was too tired to see what or who had a hold of me, but when I awoke, I was being laid down gently at the peak of the mountain. I looked up to see the bighorn. Its coat was sparkling white, as if untouched by the mountain's dirt during the climb. As I got to my feet, I noticed that one of its horns had been broken when it caught me. I felt very guilty, but as the bighorn trotted away, I saw that somehow the cracked horn had become whole again. So it will be with you, my child, my love. You will get hurt and be broken from time to time, but that will be the very moment when you find yourself held, rescued, and saved. When all seems lost, grace is there to pick you up, patch your wounds, and carry you to safety. Grace saves.
Grace took a breath and smiled timidly at her mom. She hugged her and headed for the door. As she reached for the doorknob, she suddenly stopped and turned again to her mother. She had one more question.
Mom, but how does the story end? You're up on the mountain, but how do you get back down?
Grace's mother calmly replied.
Let me walk with you so I can finish my story.
She led Grace out the door and quickly grabbed a few things from the shelf before following her daughter, and then she continued.
With my strength restored, I knew it was time to complete my journey and walk down the other side of the mountain. But night was falling fast, and I couldn't see my way. The sun was setting beautifully upon the horizon. And the dark was closing in so quickly that I didn't even know where my next step would lead me. It was then that I felt and heard a buzzing in my ears like a small engine. And then, not even 5 inches from my nose, flew a colorful little hummingbird. Its wings moved in an intricate and infinite pattern. The sun was setting right behind the hummingbird, and as though capturing the light from the dying sun, its belly began to glow. Lit up like a blazing torch, the hummingbird raised its beak, signaling me to follow. The walk down the mountain wasn't easy, especially after already coming so far. But every time I felt as if I couldn't take another step, the hummingbird's belly would shine brighter, leading me forward. So it will be with you, my child, my love. You will see the sun setting and come to the place where you feel you cannot take another step in your own strength. At that point, you must decide to fully trust and follow your guide. That will be the very moment when grace will give you new strength and lead you all the way to the destination.
Grace and her mother reached Grace's school. Kids were pouring in from all directions. Grace didn't seem nervous anymore. She tried to let go of her mom's hand, but her mother didn't allow her. She knelt down to Grace's eye level and finished her story.
Upon reaching the end of my journey, I was shocked to find the fox and the bighorn waiting for me. The hummingbird joined them, and together they turned toward the morning sun. I realized that where I thought my journey had ended, it actually had just begun. So it will be with you, my child. This story is why we named you Grace. Grace doesn't end. It never ends. It just goes on and on. It is time for your journey now, and I love you very much.
They hugged. Before Grace could run off, her mother opened her backpack and placed something inside.
Here, don't open this until you get into class, okay?
Okay, I love you.
Grace's mother watched her daughter disappear into the crowd and then turned for home. Grace walked confidently into her classroom. She said hello to her new teacher and chose the first seat in the front row. She remembered what her mom had said, opened her backpack, and reached inside. She pulled out an old tattered leather bag. She opened it up and pulled out 3 wooden figurines from inside. It was the fox, the bighorn, and the hummingbird. Grace sat them down one by one on her desk.
Hey, those are cool. My name is Melody. What are those?
Grace looked at her and said,
My name is Grace. Do you want to hear a story?